Why does a country that speaks Romanian, sings the same folk songs, follows the same traditions, and traces its roots to the very same medieval princes stand separated by an invisible line on the map? Why does Moldova, a land whose history is intertwined with Romania for more than 600 years, still exist as a separate nation today? This is not just a question of borders, it is a story shaped by empires, wars, occupation, and political forces far beyond the will of the people who lived on this land. To understand why Moldova is not part of Romania, we must pull back the curtain on a forgotten chapter of European history where powerful kingdoms collided, empires carved territories like chess pieces, and the fate of an entire culture was rewritten through treaties and invasions. The answer is not simple because this division was not created overnight. It was built slowly, layer by layer, across centuries of conflict and control. Long before modern states existed, the lands of today's Romania and Moldova were part of a single medieval principality known as Moldavia, a place of dense forests, mountain fortresses, and river valleys where a shared language and culture flourished. For hundreds of years, there was no border dividing this land. But as great empires rose and fell from the Ottomans to the Russians, Moldavia became the battleground of Europe's power struggles. Bit by bit, the region was pulled apart until one side became part of Romania and the other fell under foreign rule. This story explains not just why the two countries are separated, but why their people still feel connected through identity, memory, and heritage. Today, when you look at the map of Eastern Europe, the border between Romania and Moldova might look simple. But behind that line lies centuries of lost wars, secret treaties, population shifts, forced identities, and political calculations that reshaped an entire region. To understand why the two nations remain separate, we must journey back to the origins of Moldavia itself, follow the invasions and empires that redrew its boundaries, and uncover how the modern Republic of Moldova emerged from the shadow of a powerful neighbor. Only by understanding this long and complicated past can we answer the question, why is Moldova not part of Romania? In the 14th century, the Principality of Moldavia emerged between the Carpathian Mountains and the Dniester River, forming one of the most significant medieval states of Eastern Europe. This land included what is now Eastern Romania and the entire territory of modern Moldova. Its people spoke the same Romance language, practiced similar customs, and lived under one ruler, creating a unified cultural and political identity. Early Moldavia was a frontier state, defending its lands from Tatar raids and foreign ambitions while building fortified towns, monasteries, and trade routes that connected the Black Sea to the interior of Europe. For centuries, no border divided these lands. Moldavia was simply Moldavia, a single country with one population. This shared origin forms the root of today's connection between Moldova and Romania. The idea of separation did not exist. It would take the pressure of rising empires to begin breaking this unity. By the 1500s, the Ottoman Empire expanded deep into Eastern Europe, and Moldavia came under its suzerainty. Although the Ottomans allowed Moldavia to keep its princes and internal autonomy, the principality was now bound by heavy tribute and military obligations. Moldavia was still one united land, but it became a stage for competing imperial interests. The Ottomans, Poles, and Russians sought influence here, often treating the region as a strategic buffer rather than a sovereign nation. As Moldavian rulers struggled to balance loyalty to the Ottomans with a desire to maintain independence, the principality grew weaker. Corruption, internal rivalries, and foreign interference eroded its strength. Although no physical border split Moldavia yet, the constant tug-of-war among empires destabilized the region and made it vulnerable to future partition. This era marks the first time external power began shaping the destiny of Moldavia's lands, setting the stage for the division to come. The turning point came in 1812 during the Russo-Turkish War. After defeating the Ottomans, the Russian Empire forced them to cede the eastern half of Moldavia, an area known as Bessarabia. This region included most of what is now the Republic of Moldova. For the first time in its history, Moldavia was physically divided. Under Russian rule, Bessarabia experienced dramatic changes. Romanian language schools were restricted, the Cyrillic alphabet was imposed, and Russian settlers were encouraged to move in. The goal was clear: integrate the region into the Russian Empire and weaken its cultural ties to the rest of Moldavia. Meanwhile, the western half continued under Ottoman influence and later played a central role in forming modern Romania. This forced separation in 1812 is the historical moment when the roots of today's division between Romania and Moldova began. The two lands, once one principality, were now being shaped by different empires. In 1859, a major political transformation occurred when the western half of Moldavia united with Wallachia to form the foundation of modern Romania. This unification was driven by shared language, culture, and a rising desire for independence from Ottoman influence. However, Bessarabia, eastern Moldavia, remained under Russian control, separated from its historical partner. As Romania modernized, secured autonomy, and eventually achieved full independence in 1878, Bessarabia was left out of this national rebirth. The people on the Romanian side saw unification as a natural continuation of their medieval heritage, while the people in Bessarabia lived under policies designed to integrate them into the Russian state. The populations with the same origin now experienced entirely different political realities. This period cemented the idea that Romania existed as a new nation, while Bessarabia became a contested territory. The division, born in 1812, deepened with the formation of Romania without its eastern lands. The collapse of the Russian Empire during World War I created a moment of opportunity for Bessarabia. As chaos spread across Russia, local leaders in Bessarabia declared autonomy and formed a governing council. Facing instability, violence, and the threat of Bolshevik expansion, this council voted in 1918 to unite with Romania. For the first time in more than a century, all the lands of the old Moldavian Principality were reunited under one state. The union was celebrated by many but contested by Soviet Russia, which refused to recognize it. In Romania, this moment was seen as the natural restoration of historical unity. But for Russia, it was viewed as an illegal annexation. Though Bessarabia experienced a period of integration with Romania, the lack of international consensus made the union fragile. This brief era of unity would not survive the next great conflict, as World War II reshaped borders once again. In 1939, the secret Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. Bessarabia fell within the Soviet sphere. In 1940, Soviet forces demanded its surrender and invaded when Romania complied under pressure. The Soviet Union annexed the territory and soon created the Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic. Population deportations, political repression, and forced collectivization radically changed the region. Romanian cultural institutions were dismantled, and a new Moldovan identity separate from Romanian was promoted by Soviet authorities. During World War II, Romania briefly recaptured the region while allied with Germany, but the Soviet Union retook it in 1944. After the war, Moldova remained firmly under Soviet control. This period solidified the modern separation between Moldova and Romania. The border that exists today was cemented not by cultural changes but by geopolitical force during one of the most violent decades in European history. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Moldova declared independence. Many believed this was the perfect moment for Moldova to reunite with Romania, as had briefly happened in 1918, but the situation was far more complex. Decades of Soviet rule had created a new political identity among many Moldovans, while Russian-speaking minorities feared unification with Romania. The region of Transnistria, heavily Russian-speaking and industrial, broke away and fought a short war against Moldova to prevent any possibility of unification. Moldova, facing economic crisis, ethnic tension, and political division, chose independence rather than immediate union. Some political parties pushed for unification, others insisted on strengthening a separate Moldovan identity. The result was a divided society, connected to Romania historically, culturally, and linguistically, yet shaped by 50 years of Soviet policy that encouraged separation. Moldova remained independent, but the idea of unity never fully disappeared. The separation between Romania and Moldova today is not due to language or culture. These remain deeply intertwined, but to geopolitics, identity, and unresolved conflicts. Russia maintains strong influence in Moldova through energy, politics, and the unresolved conflict in Transnistria, discouraging any move toward unification. Many Moldovans embrace a Moldovan identity shaped during the Soviet era, while others support closer ties or even union with Romania. Economic concerns also play a major role. Some fear losing sovereignty, while others see Romania and the European Union as an opportunity for stability. Moldova's political landscape remains split between pro-Europe and pro-Russia factions. Meanwhile, Romania supports Moldova's independence publicly, knowing unification would require both political agreement and international stability. The border between the two nations today is the result of centuries of empire, war, and political strategy, not cultural division. Despite separation, the connection between the two peoples continues through language, history, and shared heritage. Centuries of shifting empires, wars, treaties, and political struggles have carved deep lines across Eastern Europe, but none are as symbolic as the border that stands between Romania and Moldova. It is a border drawn not by the people who lived here, but by the ambitions of powerful states that saw this land as a prize. Despite this separation, the connection between the two remains unmistakable. They share a language born from the same ancient roots, a culture shaped by the same traditions, and a memory that reaches back to a time when the entire region was one principality under the same flag. Today, Moldova stands at a crossroads, balancing its own identity, its independence, and the influence of larger powers surrounding it. Whether the two nations will ever reunite is a question the future will answer, shaped not by the past, but by the choices Moldovans make for themselves. But no matter how politics shift or borders change, the cultural bond that runs between Moldova and Romania continues to remind us of a shared heritage that no empire could fully erase.